Welcome to the fourth episode of Becoming Breathwork, the podcast. Today we are going to dive deeper into breathing therapy versus breathing for healing. So we want to create a little bit more clarity, nuances around the word breathwork. And you know that we have the breath, the work in these, what are these?
Brackets.
Yes,
Brackets.
brackets, because we don't like the work.
We don't like to work.
But also, also we want to acknowledge that there are many different approaches to working with the breath. And since I specifically work with breathing therapy as a therapeutic practitioner, we want to talk a little bit more about that so that things get clearer. How are you, Katja?
I'm good. And I like differentiating things so
Mm,
that things can come back together
yes.
in possibly a slightly different state and a more effortless, effective, efficient way. And always before, and this is also, we will touch on this a little later, probably in this episode, on trauma work, and specifically in the context of breath. And the trauma work is basically about untangling the tangles, about differentiating things, and then things come back together in the more EEE way, effortless, effective, efficient. So yeah, why don't you start us off with talking a little bit more about breathing therapy?
Yes. So, on the second episode, we talked about dysfunctional breathing. And I want to elaborate on that a little bit from the therapeutic point of view. So, what is breathing therapy? There is no conclusion on this. If you ask different people what is breathing therapy, you get you
Now
get
that this was the
10
whole
different
point of this,
answers.
the whole point of this episode, and you're like, no, well,
But we will focus on how we look at it. Look at it. So breathing therapy for me is to work with the physiological mostly. Again, can we make that big of a differentiation? Maybe not, but mostly the physiological dysfunction of breathing. Of course, I always say that there, like with any kind of work with the breathing or approach, awareness, modulation of breathing, there are ripple effects. It's never physiological only. And what we can also talk about what is really psychology. Is it just, as you said, misunderstood
misunderstood
physiology?
physiology. Very often, though.
Yes.
Very often.
Exactly, exactly. So working with the breath in any form, any way, there are always these ripple effects that tend to spread, tend to somehow open and refine the whole field, the whole inner world, as well as you in it or in the world. So definitely there is no strict category to breathing therapy. Also in some countries, for example, Norway, where I mostly live, breathing therapy very easily means the hyperventilation practices, the breathwork practices, due to that there is a strong Reichian influence. Wilhelm Reich, the I don't know, was he a psychotherapist? Anyways, working again with this kind of a multi disciplinary way with the body, the psyche, and the spirit. Has a lot of influence in Norway. So breathing therapy, for example, is often about changing the breath much more than what I would consider being the therapeutic way. Kind of the safe, in a way of working with the breath, because we are working with the really basics of the breathing pattern. And why we are elaborating this and what I start with is that I want to, and I often get this question if I start to get more into the spirit and kind of like becoming breathwork mode, that is there no value in breathing retraining, in repatterning the breath? Because people want simple answers usually. I mean,
Yep.
we can challenge
Yes.
that a little bit. But we don't give simple answers. There's no. It's not it's not complicated, but there for sure is complexity in the breath work in the breath work scene. So yes, there is absolutely value in breathing retraining. And first, I'm going to talk a little bit about, and please, Katja, give your ideas. Interrupt me when you when you feel like there is something. So, if I in my work would do the assessments and the measurements and all that, and there would be clearly a dysfunction in the breathing pattern. Improving breathing habits would be very beneficial and is very beneficial. So we are then in a way working with the corrective, like the corrective modality of decreasing the intensity of symptoms that dysfunctional breathing might bring about.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Who decides what is correct?
Yeah, this is a good this is this is a good question. Well, the official answer, there are some parameters for for functional breathing that clearly tend to correlate with how the person feels. For example, carbon dioxide levels is a good example of if the carbon dioxide levels are low, usually there are some symptoms of chronic hyperventilation, which then again decreases the resilience of the system and might not be the most supportive for health. But when I use the word corrective and correcting, it's not that we have one outcome or we want to put the breath into okay, this is the perfect breath. This is how you should be breathing all the time. And I absolutely, okay, maybe I don't use the word hate, but I dislike strongly
Well, you are allowed to hate things.
the idea that we should be breathing in one way, because then we lose the flexibility, the responsiveness of breath. That is actually the biggest strength of and of this fluidity, that the system is fluid and it responds, and it kind of like there are these oscillations, and I again make something with my hands kind of showing the fluidity of the system. So absolutely, there is no corrective breathing therapy. Does not mean that we are after one outcome or one pattern that is good and others are bad. But there are sometimes, especially if there is, for example, traumatic stress or strong signs of dysregulated nervous system, there are usually some signs of dysfunctional breathing as well that we can assess, we can measure, and sometimes the decreasing of the intensity of symptoms is necessary before we get any access to any other layer. And this is an important thing. We are not doing this just because we want the breath to be perfect or come with us like come with this idea of breathing like this will help you to recover better or stress less. I mean, those are side effects, but mostly because that gives us access to other layers that might be the root causes, that might be the kind of some kind of blockage or how would I say, something that is not flowing in a healthy way, and taking the edge off in a way with improving, practicing healthier breathing patterns. It can be a very important access point to that. So these are usually I would say, like surface level stuff. They are not surface level, but they might be small things that have big impact, like breathing through the nose most of the times, not pulling the inhalation in, not trying to, breathe inhale focused, because we have these ideas of taking a deep breath. That quite often can be a chronic hyperventilation pattern, or sighing too much, or these reflexes that tend to uh, that are signs of the body that it tries to resolve things but does not really succeed in that. So very many breathing, like dysfunctional um, breathing patterns, are actually signs of the body or attempts of the body, mind, spirit, the respiratory center and all that, to resolve something, but it doesn't succeed in the task. And this again shows us that the breath is all the time trying to help you,
Mm-hmm.
but it might have kind of a chosen the wrong the wrong
Is it careful here?
the non-optimal
I took
path
so many
for it.
notes.
Yes. And I say one more thing, then go. Usually maximum 10% of my clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also what the research would say, that approximately 10% of people have dysfunctional breathing. It is not that 90% of us breathe wrong. It's not, not like that 90% of us have lost the flexibility and responsiveness of the breath. No, it's usually 10%. It is related to traumatic stress quite often. Also very, very heavy allostatic load, dysregulation of the nervous system. And what breathing therapy can help is to take the edge off, to restore healthy breathing patterns. And for that, the breathing retraining, like doing formal practices, practicing something, not from the point of view of like fixing, or we want to override, but with enough softness, enough of uh, permission for the body also to breathe as it wants to breathe. So we're not trying to force it in any way, but to simply softly inviting certain things that can be very precise practices to repattern and get again like a little bit to the more optimal path and have access to the deeper layers.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
I think we talked about this at some point about the range, right? We
Yes.
did. I just like as you were talking, I remembered like years ago, I was studying with a person specifically around breath, and the teacher was very hypo ventilation focused,
Mm,
minimal breath all the way, like big breath, but really bad, like sighing bad, yawning bad, like everything was labeled like this is good and this is bad, and I did know better, but now I do. And then I remember I unlearned to sigh and yawn.
mm.
Like I unlearned a reflex,
Yes.
a body reflex, which is like impressive. And so,
The
right,
work.
didn't it worked exactly? My was it optimal function? I don't think so. Um,
Mm. Def-
but it's just also amazing like how body learns so quickly and how we can override something that is like a reflex that is inbuilt, and we can override it by will.
yes.
Amazing, very impressive. Again, was it optimal function? Absolutely not.
Yes. And this
And
relates to exactly
mm-hmm,
the theme of the
yeah,
third episode, changing the breath. You should know what you're changing so that you're not overriding something that is actually sign of health, like healthy.
mm-hmm,
We want to be yawning and sighing as a part of the
exactly, yeah.
flexible breathing pattern.
Yeah, and then I did know, I was like, oh, so this person, like, they know things, and so I will follow.
Mm,
Like, I,
mm,
I know what to do now. Thank you for the instructions. Like, this is not the way how we will teach this training, just to
no.
make sure.
Yes.
To me, it's all about uh, natural intelligence
Mm,
and listening to the natural intelligence. And what we bring also into this training will be a good portion of biodynamic work,
mm,
which is like a proper biodynamic work, not again the mainstreamy or whatever, like social media style, but the kind when you are able, and I'm just also thinking in the context of breathing therapy, even when someone shows up and they like really like there's some constriction and then some like physiological geometry is just like, yes, for some, again, for a very good reason, is just kind of off. And then, in the context of breathing therapy or even breathing for healing, which we will talk in a moment
mm,
about,
mm,
um, am I, as a practitioner, am I able to listen to the what they call in biodynamics inherent treatment plan, because each body inherently knows how to move towards health
Yes.
by default. This is like
Mm.
body knows. But the core competency of listening.
Mm.
And am I the one who decides what is better or what is the corrective movement for this person
Yes.
because of my information that is stored in my brain? Because I read this list of like do this and this and this,
Yes.
or do I know all these things and I'm
Mm.
listening to the inherent treatment plan and I'm in the relational field with another body, and together, like as a space holder, right? This is like actual space holding to me as well. The body, by presence, by resonance, the body is able to move toward health in a more easy. Yeah, it just becomes more available.
Yes. And I love this, and I really I myself, I know I have made mistakes, quote unquote
Same
mistakes with
here. Yeah.
clients, because the will or the information or how I perceive things is being affected too much, like affects too much what I actually can see, listen, perceive in that moment.
Yes.
So, and this is, I really what I really appreciate in your work, and I have learned so much from you and the way that you teach about the body and the breath, and it's never only one thing, but the whole thing. Like you just know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's then the inherent treatment plan can really also in this context of breathing therapy become the most natural way to go forward, to go on,
Mm-hmm.
to move, and to support the movement, because
And yeah,
any kind of therapeutic session is always about how do we move in a way, what kind of movement is taking
yeah,
place, because there's
yeah.
always there's always some kind of movement direction.
Exactly. And to me, this is the only way. Like, I, as a recipient of any kind of therapeutic work, I
Mm.
don't want anything else. I
No.
don't want anybody's will decide, like human will deciding what's better for me. And I was thinking about this even like in context of social media and specifically Instagram. Like today sometimes I go and like scroll a little bit to just like see like what's out there, like what is happening in this therapeutic healing world,
Yeah, yeah.
stuff specifically on social media. And the first reel that I saw today, it was like a person like going full into the screen and going, "You have money blocks, and this is why." And I'm like, "Ooh, you diagnosing me like, ooh, from the other side of the screen without knowing me at all, and like knowing exactly what I should do." Like this is like what what is happening?
Yeah.
But this is exactly the same thing that happens in breath, in any kind of body work, in any kind of therapeutic work. Like we come with this, I know exactly what's wrong with you. No, you don't. You never do.
Yeah, yeah. And this is one very important reason why I and for me the directive way of like breathe like this is not therapeutic work. Those might be strategies, they might be practices, they might be helpful, but it's not therapeutic work, because the true act of listening of and that is why also it might be very challenging to have group sessions that are truly therapeutic for every single participant. That's not possible, in my opinion. Or the space holding skill has to be like top level, like really top
I
level.
was like, I was like, I think I can do that.
Exactly. I know that. But if we look at examples from the mainstream with big groups,
Mhm.
especially if
Mhm.
there's like a breathwork session with 100 participants, I'm like, I would never want to be part of that
No,
because
no,
I
same.
mean, I have been, and I have also very, very dear memories and good experiences, but I also have bad experiences, or experiences that have not supported me in any way. So yes, the space holding skill of that people can feel met in the situation. in their own experience, is it requires some, yes, top level
Very much like wizardry level skill.
wizardry.
Again, something that will be covered in the training. So join us in the
Yes.
training.
Yeah. I mean, what we are here to do is just to also make a point out of this is to build a different paradigm around and for breath work that kind of understands the unlimitedness,
Mm-hmm.
but also understands where where people usually where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean that I feel that there is often this gap. It can be an information like this is how it should be done, and this is how the
Yes.
where the people are. It can be any kind of other gap, the authority gap, or something that is not, they are not really meeting, and that creates a lot of this experience of being not being met.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Mm.
chronic misattunement, especially in for people who are like on a like higher sensitivity scale of things, neurodivergent folks, with like folks with chronic any kinds of chronic conditions. And this is again the ask me how I know situation, but like the chronic misattunement that has been happening like, for the all of your life, and then you come into a quote unquote a healing space, and it just recapitulates and it continues the same exactly the same way. And then for me, also as a space holder, as a facilitator of the field, right, it's all about attunement.
Mm,
It's all about presence and attunement, and how present can I be with everything that is happening and with every movement that is happening.
mm, mm. Yeah.
And this kind of brings us more into this the second part of this conversation of the breath and breath work in healing for trauma, quote unquote release,
Mm, mhm.
which again brings me personally into this like deep annoyance and eye rolling.
Hmm. Yeah. Me too. Could we start with um, the trauma and breathing tools, breath as an access point, breath in trauma work? What do you think about that? Because for me, that's also might be a little bit different from or is definitely in my own practice as a practitioner. It's very different from the kind of the general breathing for healing, which is often quite untargeted,
Mm-hmm.
and for a good reason. And I think it should be because when we work with trauma, it's kind of important to know what you're doing, but also to really understand what trauma is,
It
which.
is so important, and it's so everywhere, and I keep seeing it happening still somehow.
Mm.
Uh, that breath work is being sold as a trauma release
Mm.
thing.
Yeah.
So breath work equals trauma work, which is not true at all.
Mm, mm.
Breath work can be helpful with trauma work, but breath work does not equal trauma work.
No.
Trauma work requires a lot of study.
Mm,
You
mm,
cannot become like a trauma or whatever specialist, whatever, however we want to call it, in some days or even weeks or even months.
mm,
I studied this for life for many years now, and I still do not call myself
mm,
like trauma specialist or
mm,
something.
mm.
And
Yeah.
people still ask me, like my students, like, yeah, but you teach trauma work.
Mm,
And at the same time, we never use the word trauma. So it's a very different approach as well.
mm.
Um, yeah, do you want to say some things? Because I feel like if I go into it, we'll be here like for some hours.
Well, in my opinion, I also like. In my opinion, you are doing trauma work, and and I too, without calling it trauma work, because it is not necessarily to dig into the concept of trauma in order to work with the body in an intelligent way. And this is, by the way, a lot what becoming breathwork is. We are after the intelligence of
Yes.
the system, the innate intelligence, but also the intelligence in space holding, in working with the breath.
Yes.
And that, to me, that can be trauma work, but we are not digging, we're not labeling it, we're not like digging into the, you know, the concept of it, but understanding it more on the, like more, but really truly understanding it as a lived experience.
And we can talk, maybe we can make another episode like
Yeah,
specifically
let's
on this,
mm,
because trauma release
mm,
is not trauma work either.
no, no,
You cannot cry or scream or hit pillows your trauma out of your body.
no. Definitely not. And often then at this point there's a question like, oh, but I really feel that this breathwork session like worked better than 10 years of psychotherapy. How is that possible? Well, for many reasons. Maybe that was the first time that you tapped into the actual lived experience of like what is living in me, which in itself is a huge insight, like a huge insight and a big win in a way. And the other point in this is my opinion and observation is that sometimes the system is ready, the completion or the resolution is ready, and then we tend to hang on like it was because of you, it was because of this teacher, it was because of this breathwork session,
Mm-hmm.
which there is some truth in that, but it's also like the maturity was
Yeah.
there, and then there was a sense of like moving forward or whatever it is.
And another
But
aspect
definitely,
to this also
yeah.
can be that a lot of the times in the breathwork scene, everybody is being guided towards some kind of cathartic experience,
Mm,
like a lot of crying, screaming, yeah, pillow hitting, I don't know, shaking, whatever. A lot of the times,
mm,
and then for a lot of folks, it can definitely feel like there's this big cathartic experience, like a flash of very intense, big energies, and
mm,
there's some like crying and streaming and like snot and everything is like blah blah blah, and everything begins to literally flow,
mm,
and there's this cathartic experience, like an explosion of stuff. And after, what comes after that, like what goes up must come down, right?
mm, mm,
What comes after that is some kind of stillness,
mm, mm.
which can feel so good,
Yes.
which is temporary.
Mm,
It's like a temporary stillness after this big explosion,
mm.
which a lot of people can identify as like, I released all my trauma or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of practitioners in breathwork also treat it like trauma release.
Mm,
And
mm,
if you didn't cry loud enough, you didn't want it bad enough,
mm, mm,
why do you hold onto your trauma? Shame on you.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
so there's like another layer of shame economy happening
Yes, and
as well.
that's serious. That is so fucked up. I have a
Absolutely.
very, very strong opinions about the shaming. But
Absolutely.
let's talk about that later. Um, Again, we promised like 100 episodes more, so we'll be here some more years. um, but yes, we have talked about breathing therapy, the therapy for a physiological dysfunction, something that is, yeah, I can say surface level. It's never surface level, but it is something that is there on the way. Um, got somehow distorted. There is a you had a very good word for it. Now I already forgot what it was. But yes, there is some. Now I remember. Physiological geometry.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Because then it's kind of like, yes, we are working with the geometry, and that's always, it's never physiological only, because your body shape also, in if we look at the yoga practice, yoga asanas, the geometry, the form has meaning. It has something to say in how you feel, how you are in general. So yes, kind of like working with the physiological geometry, that would be the breathing therapy that I am practicing, that
Mm-hmm.
I, that I have
Can I
plans
can
for.
I add something to
Mhm.
this? Because this is something I realized yesterday, just literally yesterday, that the geometrical pattern of something, of a body, of your breath, of like organs and bones and stuff,
Mm,
or more psychological, like, right, and any kind of pattern. And geometry of the pattern is the resonance of it.
Mm.
It literally, like when you vibrate the sand or water, you see a literal pattern. And so the actual geometry of the body
Yeah.
is a certain resonance.
Yes.
And how do we meet resonance? We meet it with an external resonance.
Mm.
And when we meet internal dissonance from external resonance,
Mm.
this is where like magic is happening. But this is like a little opening into something completely like a whole other world of experiences. Just again, put it on the list
Yes,
for later.
absolutely. Mm. And then we touched upon the breathing for healing, especially now. Maybe no, they didn't talk so much about it, but maybe we have some final words for it. But breath as a breath work is a trauma work, which we don't agree on. So in trauma work, again, to some conclusions, the intelligence of how to work with the whole system is so important. Whereas the breath work, and now we kind of jumped from breathing therapy to more of the hyperventilation breath work, cathartic breath work spaces that often use conscious connected breathing or stronger patterns or gears that would then kind of break through the system. In a way, it's quite often the breath is used as a force,
Mm-hmm.
as a pattern, as a symbol that takes the like a washing
Mm-hmm.
machine that somehow liberates or is used for the liberation of something that might be blocked. So this for sure is not the complete picture of what we mean by or bringing more nuances into the world and word of breathwork, but at least it's a starter. But should we say something, conclude with breathing for healing or
I
the
feel like
healing?
it's a whole other beast. Let's put it on the list.
Yes, exactly. So we also have some opinions about the word healing. It's might be a bit overused or might not,
For
might
sure,
for sure
definitely.
is
Very.
overused in these days. And breathing for healing, if I would say some words about that breath work as a healing or breathing for healing space can include so many different practice forms. It's not only hyperventilation breath work, it can also be more on the nervous system regulation. But if I would say some things that in my opinion describe it very well, is that they are kind of a untargeted, like what comes out of it is up to you, or it's an open invitation, open space of uh connecting deeper with yourself, and allowing things that come out from that to come and be felt and acknowledged, and maybe ideally also integrating the insights in some way. um, and quite often, unfortunately, they are not very intelligent spaces, which is why we make these refinements, these nuances into this. And not to say that they are not beneficial for many; they
Hmm.
can be absolutely. But again, I say about 50% of people.
Yeah, it's back to the question, am I being met?
Yes.
And am I being met as a participant, as a receiver? And am I meeting my people as a practitioner?
So these
The
are
end.
something that we
The end.
that we will continue with. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Please give us suggestions for further talks, what you want to hear about, and we're appreciating that you're listening to the podcast. Mm.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.